Yo, comic fam, big shout out to Repair Tech Tony.
Hit up Repair Tech Tony for all your repair tech needs.
He won the giveaway from last week's video. Enjoy your Hot 10 comics list. What is good, comic book community? It's another week of the hottest comics in the market. The comics that will define a generation of collectors at the mic virtually with Gem from GemMintCollectibles. How you doing, man?
What's going on, Tom? What's up, comic fam? I'm doing great. How are you?
Gem, I'm feeling great, man, because in the last 2 days, we've had more news than in the last 2 years, it feels like.
Man, Disney mic dropped them with all the reveals for the Star Wars shows, for the Marvel stuff, just tons and tons of content coming. And I just feel like it couldn't be a better time in this era where like movie theaters are like non-existent. We have this Disney Plus streaming service that they're dropping a ton of content on.
Slap the subscribe button because you know we have so many comics that we got to chat with you about, not just today, but for a long time coming. Comic books, man. What a great time to be into this hobby. Let's chat about number 10 on this list and start them off with some Todd McFarlane goodness. That's not even a first appearance.
Yeah, I love when books end up on this list for like no apparent reason other than it's just an awesome book. Batman 423, classic Todd McFarlane cover, is only on the list because of the record-breaking sales. We reported on a sale of $1,051 back in September. Tom, can you believe we've been doing this video together for like 6 months?
Dude, it's really hard to believe that you have been down to sit at this table virtually with me every single week, man. Not even my own team members can do that right now.
Yeah, come on, Fire Guy, get it together. Anyway, we reported on the record-breaking sale of $1,051 back in September, and that record has just been broken again with a sale of $1,300 and a 9.8. But we also have movement in 9.6, a newsstand sold for $400 back in September, and we have another record-breaking sale, $500 for this book.
This is one of those moments, comic fan, where you need to know all of the different versions of this comic book because there are 5. Yes, there's the cover A and the newsstand, but there's also a Canadian $1 price variant that is similar to the TMNT hikes that we're seeing. That's not only unpredictable, but keeps going up in value. And that is not the same case for all Canadian price variants. There's a second print that you would know the difference by checking that UPC. It says DC Comics aren't just for kids there. And there's a third print that looks exactly like the second print. The only difference is on the inside front cover, it does say it's a third print. Now, the Canadian price variant sells for, on average, $200 and climbing. Really hard to pinpoint that one. The second and third print going for the same at $50.
You know what? We talked about all these announcements on Disney Plus, but we got to talk about all these crazy Spider-Man 3 announcements and rumors, and everybody's coming back to reprise their role who has ever been in a Spider-Man movie, including Alfred Molina, who played Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2. Number 9 on the list is Amazing Spider-Man Issue 3, the first appearance of Dr. Octopus.
Last week, we went over the single-digit Spidey census count for 9.8s and explained just how scarce every one of them are. And this particular key book, although is giant and is owned by many collectors, and there's a lot of them made, there are only 2 CGC 9.8s on the census, and we saw one sell last week for all new records at $115,000. We also have some other records to report on this week because of that new height that this comic just made. A 2.0, once going for $1,000, has a new record at $1,560. A 2.5 prior record at $1,420, now going for $1,900. But the big numbers landed in the mid-grade copies. 5.5s have never exceeded $2,800, and the $3,000 marker has been broken this past week, not just once, not just twice, but 3 different times. Here's the thing, comic fam. In the last couple days, we have found out that these crossover appearances, this Spideyverse, may be just a small cameo appearance. We may only be seeing characters like Doc Ock and Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and the other cameo appearances that have been rumored. Very briefly, we may not even see them much more than a couple moments in screen. Does this mean that there is much room for spec, especially on these types of big Silver Age keys?
I mean, personally, I don't think so. I don't think you should be buying ASM3s because Alfred Molina may have a brief cameo in this movie. However, I think ASM3 is always a great buy. A single-digit Spidey key of arguably one of his deadliest villains. I think it's a good buy just for that itself.
And now we're looking at the list at number 8 with a huge Bronze Age key. We have Hulk 181 seeing huge records this week. We have a new 9.6 liter. And before we report on the $10,000 in gains that this comic just had this week, let's explain why there are actually different versions, kind of this comic book.
Yeah, this 9.6 white pager had a deep red blood background. We've been talking about these Silver Age and Bronze Age keys with these red background covers and how the first batches off the printer are more vibrant than the later runs. And collectors are aware of this. They want those solid, deep, no fading red covers. Books like Hulk 181, books like Batman 181, and even Silver Surfer 3. These books have all been record breakers lately with those first run covers.
Courtesy of the Comic Link auction this week, we are seeing for the first time a once $17,000 book, a beautiful copy, an early printed copy of Hulk 181, now go for $27,577. And I appreciate you bringing up those two other covers because we have discussed record breakers for both of them. Poison Ivy's first appearance in Batman 181, surprising the world with a $90,000 sale at 9.8 just weeks ago. And Silver Surfer 3 first Mephisto hitting $38,000 in that same grade. With X-Men definitely on the minds of collectors and slated for sometime in the future, but no news this week. I think there's room for our mutants to grow.
Tom, I'm kicking myself for not buying Hulk 181, X-Men 1, and Fantastic Four 1. When we learned that Disney acquired the rights from Fox, we know better. We report on this, and that's why you're starting to see these books on the list. Number 7 is X-Men 1, which, by the way, I feel like it still has room to grow. We just got the Fantastic Four official movie announcement. The director has been picked, and we don't have any X-Men news yet, so you're going to see this book continue to rise.
With Deadpool 3 currently in production, with writers already attached, we know that mutants are gonna come at some point in the future, but when? We're gonna probably see Easter eggs, maybe even casting rumors, which is why we are going to see Blue Chip Keys take the lead for the most aggressive speculation gains. And right now we're going to report on some mutant gains because the Comic Link auction, again, we have a new 7.5 liter going up by $4,000 this week, once going for $26,000 just in October, now going for $30,000.
Even the lower grades are getting in on this, man. This week, a CGC 4.0 broke that $10,000 mark for a second time. The first time it broke that record was last month. Also, an entry level, a 2.0, previously had a record of $4,600, just sold for $5,100. I'm telling you, it's going to continue to rise. You're going to want to jump in this now before we start getting more movie news.
Comic Fam, we just got a slate of over 20 shows this past weekend that are going to be coming to the screen and affecting comics long term. We just got a slew of rumors about Spider-Verse spec, and the thing that both Gem and I are most excited and optimistic about as far as speculation goes is the mutant line of comics. And I'm talking not just our famous mutants, I'm talking about the variants of set issues, the newsstands, the Canadian price variants. I think this right here could be the biggest moment we have in the next couple years to have some room to buy in at, to see some unprecedented gains long term.
Yeah, and especially with Disney Plus having their streaming service, there are so many mutants that maybe won't make a big screen movie debut, but can have their own show. I'm talking about like Uncanny X-Force. You could even see something like Excalibur, or maybe even a new home for New Mutants. So definitely want to be up to date on those key issues, because once we start getting announcements, those books are going to heat up. Tom, what's the best place everyone could go to for these types of updates?
You know it's Key Collector Comics. Use code TOM101. It'll unlock a free 1-week subscription of the best comic app in existence. It keeps you up on every single comic book franchise. The news that affects comic books, it's going to be not only provided to you consistently in an organized fashion for you to be able to consume and make buying decisions, speculation decisions. You can catalog your comics, keep track of your comics, and you can support the show by utilizing that code. And now we're looking at number 6 on the list with some modern day storytelling that's about to debut in early 2021, affecting some old comics.
We're talking about Batman 313, the first appearance of Tim Fox, the son of Lucius Fox, who is debuting as the new Batman for DC's future state. Not only is the hype there for this book, but this is also the first time that Batman and Catwoman dated, and we all know that Tom King had his mixed review run on Batman and the current miniseries Batman Catwoman. So this book has a couple of different things going for it.
This is the first time we see our Dark Knight share a intimate and vulnerable moment with Catwoman and share a kiss for the first time. We are seeing some major record breakers, however, because of the Tim Fox appearance, because of the upcoming DC Future State. And we'll get to why I'm so hyped about that event in a moment. Let's report on some crazy record breakers, because I'll remind the comic fam that this book in 9.8 was going for $150 at its height in the past year. And we are seeing prices all over the board, starting with a 9.6 that kicked us off with a $500 sale. And you may think that that is crazy high, but then soon after, we saw a 9.0 go for $740, moving the marker up, thus moving the price up for lower grade copies. A 7.5 going for now $500, which was what a 9.6 sold for earlier in the week, and an 8.0 going for $600. I, for one, am super pumped about this new narrative because it has nothing to do with anything dystopian, anything apocalyptic, anything negative with high stakes, which is really what DC is notorious for in their marketing for new events. Now, we're going to see just a future of our heroes, what they're like when they're older, and new heroes that exist in the future state.
Yeah, man, you know I do the new comic book day reviews over on my channel every Wednesday, spoiler free. I'm definitely going to pick up all of these DC Future State titles to give them a shot. And by the way, we are just 600 subscribers away from our huge 100,000 subscriber milestone. So come on through. If you're not subscribed, we're doing a huge giveaway, so swing on by.
Comic fam, let's get Gem to 100K. Congratulations, brother. And by the way, can't wait to see what this book does at 9.8 in coming weeks. I think we're going to be pretty surprised. Let's take a look at number 5 on the list, because I am not surprised about Star Wars Heir to the Empire number 1 making the list. Grand Admiral Thrawn is coming.
Not only did we get all the MCU announcements on Disney Plus, the Spider-Man, Spider-Verse, Spider-3 rumors, but we have a ton of Star Wars news, coupled with the fact that The Mandalorian is just killing it. I hope you guys saw last week's episode. We're talking about a newsstand 9.8 that was selling for $1,500 last week, with a $1,000 gain, selling for $2,500.
And with this newsstand setting the new height of the book's price, it caused the direct market to make it on the list this week, because we have seen gains of over $100 in every single grade above a 9.0 in the last 7 days. All it took was Ahsoka Tano mentioning Grand Admiral Thrawn on show, but that coupled with the fact that we are going to be seeing movie appearances as well as more spin-off series that relate to the character, I think there is not just this comic to spec on, but its variants as well, because there's actually more than one. There is a newsstand that we just mentioned, look out for the barcode, but there's also a Hasbro distributed comic that was put into like a toy, and this toy comic book is seeing gains of over $100. And with the newsstand outpricing itself and that cover A outpricing itself, I think that this toy accompaniment will soon see some major gains as well.
Everybody's got Star Wars fever right now. All the Star Wars keys are seeing record-breaking gains. You got Jedi vs. Sith in a 9.8 selling for $975. Star Wars 68 in a 9.8 had a previous high of $1,400, now selling for $1,650. And Star Wars 42, a CGC 9.6 just broke its previous $800 record, selling at $1,000. And we're probably going to see another Star Wars book later on in this list.
Comic fam, you only got 1 day left to join the December mystery mail call and get your box from us. You support the show, but you get comic books, and you'll get it before the holidays. We are working hard to get these packed and sent out via priority mail so that you can have it before the new year and before the holidays. we are sending out 2 exclusives this month. The first is a Nick Klein cover of King in Black issue number 1. It's a mail call exclusive, limited to 3,000 printed. We also have 2 different versions of TMNT 110 done by the #1 artist of the year, Peach Momoko. We are sending out virgins as well as trade dress copies, and it's random which one you'll get. Link in the description to reserve your box and support the show.
All right, number 4 on the list is a book that cannot stay off the list. This book, along with its counterparts, which we might see later on as well. Raphael #1, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first miniseries spin-off comic, the first appearance of Casey Jones, constantly breaking records.
I think more and more collectors are realizing how difficult it is to get this book without color breaks because of that black border and that just terrible quality paper that was used to make this oversized comic that didn't really fit into long boxes appropriately, that got damaged to hell over time. We are seeing some crazy record breakers this week, just like we've been seeing over this last couple quarters. We have a new 9.6 that I'll remind was a record broken back in November for $2,650. It's crazy, comic fam. We are seeing a $5,040 sale this week. The 9.8 record was broken in September, which really started this off for $3,500.
You know what that means. When a 9.8 hits the market, it's going to be a banger.
Seeing a book price hike $1,500 in a full grade less is something that no collector foresaw, which is why we're seeing gains like no others this year in 2020. And it's not just this book, it's the independent, low print, respected Copper Age keys that are all getting a lot of love this year. In the past week, we saw Cerebus, the Aardvark #1, a 7.5 that once went for $1,800, go for $2,075. Albedo #2, first Usagi Yojimbo, going for $7,000 back in June, just broke $10,000 in a CGC 9.4. TMNT Adventures #1, once having a high grade sale at $1,875 for a 9.8, now going for $2,300. And it didn't just stop there. We have Bone #1, a 7.5 that once went for $550 back in 2017, going for $1,450 this very week. And you mentioned it, Gem. With all this Star Wars news, we knew we would get another Star Wars book on this list. But did you think it would be this aggressive? Star Wars The Clone Wars #1, Dark Horse 100, limited to 1,000 copies, variant first appearance of Ahsoka Tano, making it at #3.
Man, as soon as I saw the announcement that Ahsoka was getting her own show, I texted you right away because I knew that it meant that this book had longer legs. Had this not been announced, I would have foresaw this book leveling off, maybe even dipping down a little bit after the Mandalorian season is over. But now, it's just going to make the hype all more real, and you're going to continue to see this book grow.
Comic fam, we were reporting on this book hitting $4,000 heights because we heard rumors that there would be a Disney Plus spinoff, which is now confirmed. What we didn't foresee is that there would be like cinematic rumors as well, which has pushed this very scarce book, limited to 1,000 copies, up $1,000. Once going for $4,000, selling for $4,850. And that's not all. We have an ungraded copy selling for an all-new record. For a high-grade near-mint copy, a buyer was only willing to pay up to $1,500 back in November for this book, hoping and crossing their fingers that after a trip to Florida, it would come back at a 9.8. Well, right now we are seeing a raw copy, ungraded, go for $2,550.
Man, that's crazy for an ungraded copy. But what's even crazier is #2 on the list. Marvel Previews 95, making all types of records and causing controversy in the community.
Marvel Previews 95 caused such an internet buzz this week. So let's just get the record breakers on the screen right out the gate. We once saw this 9.8 blow people's minds, selling for $7,418 in recent weeks. Well, we have 2 new records. The first, after 65 bids at auction, a new 9.8 hitting $9,800, and then a buy it now listing going for $9,700. There was also 4 other sales and counting of ungraded books ranging from $350 in low grade to a high of $1350 in higher grade.
And for those that are saying these previews books shouldn't be considered first appearances, I gotta argue the gobbledygook #1, which includes a black and white advertisement for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, an 8.5 graded copy, just sold for $26,400. So you can't tell me that these previews books aren't valuable.
I think it's that exact mindset that a member would have to be willing to put this kind of money down on a comic collectible, a preview. And not to mention the fact that Miles Morales, I don't think there's anyone that would argue, has more spec room as far as the franchise and the character with the Spider-Verse spec and the animated series and the video games, need I go on, compared to the Last Ronin. Is there anything else that's going on with TMNT right now?
Yeah, the Turtles don't really have anything going for it right now other than nostalgia. Miles Morales is definitely the most popular character to be created in recent times. Plus, there are only 6 CGC 9.8s of this previews book on the census.
That is a low census count for this black, thick preview that would have been thrown into a long box and likely damaged over time. And back in 2012, a lot of members would think like this must have been made in troves. Like there should be just boxes and boxes existing of this preview. These things were largely thrown out. That's the first thing. They weren't handled with care. That's the second thing. And this was done in 2012 when most LCSs were in transition to previews being available online. This was part of the decline in printing these previews, and no one was speccing on previews or Miles Morales.
Yeah, these weren't treated like collectible comic books that were bagged and boarded. People wrote in these, folded them in half, rolled them up, put them in their pocket, which is why you see such a low census count for those 9.8s.
I went on Instagram at ComicTom101 and posted about the first sale that happened and told the community, warning, I may snapshot your comment and bring it on the show. So here are some of my favorite ones, Gem. I want to know what you think about some of these. Jim Comics said, "What the hell? That is crazy town. I'd rather spend my money on a Silver Age key, just saying." My dad said, "I have a Sears catalog that has a Spider-Man PJ that I believe came out before this. Sending to CGC right now." Ooh, and then we also have Solid High, the comic guy, saying preposterous, unbelievable, inconceivable.
Yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't buy it for my collection either, but you can't deny the fact that previous first appearances in previews books have tremendously increased in value. So it seems like someone, and I'm emphasizing that someone, is really investing and putting their money into this book for the long term.
That brings me to this next comment from Dallas Comics, who says, "Market manipulation clear as day. Same person with the winning bids. That's a red flag. You shouldn't be reporting this unless you are 100% these sales are fair and not a scam. People will lose their money. That's just my 2 cents. Whoa. Okay, well, we see one person buying multiple copies of the 9.8 and a number of the higher and lower graded copies of this book. But that doesn't mean market manipulation, and that is not proof that these sales aren't valid. There is a member who put their money towards a book that has 6 issues on the census, and they're spending double digits for them."
Yeah, I like what you told me when we talked about this, that these are auction books, 65 bids. There are a lot of people that are bidding for these books.
Here's what Custom Slab Comics said over on Instagram. "So the guy you interviewed that paid $2,000 a while back for a 9.8 can resell it for over $8,000 now? I remember when everyone said that was crazy, and now he can triple his money. I reached out to Craig, the buyer of that $2,000 9.8, and mentioned that there was other members that were starting to compete for their share of the low census count of the 9.8. And I wanted to hear his response, and he had a great one. He said the following: "I think it's going up even higher over time. In fact, the 9.8 population of this book stays low. If you compare market caps, the population times selling price, to Spawn #1, to Malibu Sun 13, this book has room to run Even the insane price of $10,000, there are only 6 9.8s, so the market cap is still only $60,000. The total market cap for Ultimate Fallout 9.8 is $4 million. Spawn number 1 is $1.3 million. Malibu Sun is $66,000. My basis is that Ultimate Fallout 4 has a much bigger market cap than Spawn 1, then so should Marvel Previews 95. Before you go with your gut response to criticize why someone would spend this kind of money, you have to look at the census count and the scarcity. That, coupled with the perfect storm that Miles Morales has been over this last year, makes sense to why a member of this community put $2,000 down on a comic that's currently going for near $10,000 right now in a short 6 months.
I love the feedback. I love that we have this platform where we can explain why we put something on the list, why we reported on it. Man, we even got 60% of the market share in 9.8s with buyer commentary to explain why it's here on the list. We would be the first ones to cover market manipulation like we did with the Marvel Point 1, the 1/75 ratio. Even Key Collector app and this channel, we don't even report on a ton of sales that don't really pass the sniff test. There's been Spawn 1 newsstand 9.8s that didn't make it here. So I like the feedback and I like that we're able to speak on it.
Comic fam, I want to know your thoughts in the comment section below to enter you to win this Avengers No Road Home issue number 6, signed by the legend Alex Ross. And let's chat about number 1 on the list. Hit the subscribe button. You know we're here every single week covering the heights of the market. And let's chat about some TMNT number 1 gains.
I mean, there's nothing more we can say about this that we didn't already say about Raphael number 1. No media attention, no hype, no games, no nothing coming out. Pure nostalgia and books selling for more than they've ever sold for. Let's take a look to see what TMNT number 1 has been doing in the market.
Members are realizing how difficult it is to secure their low print, high grade copies of TMNT. They thought that they were just always available and they could just grab them when the time was right. And now they're realizing, oh, the time was months ago. 3,000 copies of the first print were printed initially, many of them very difficult to find in high grade because of that black cover, and we have some high grade record breakers to prove it.
Yeah, man, a CGC 8.0 previously selling for $10,000 has just, man, almost doubled it. $16,295 is the new ceiling for this book, but the CGC 9.4 had a previous high sale of just $17,000. And the recent Heritage auction, it just sold for $36,000. That's a whole car.
There was even a CGC 9.0 signed by creator Kevin Eastman copy that went for $45,000. And that's not typical. Most of the time when you see signatures on that type of scarce collectible, especially in low grade, you don't see that kind of gains. But this shows that members are hunting for any piece of TMNT history they can get their hands on, especially with so many gains across the board of all printing as well as in all grades and newsstand and Canadian versions. Need I say more?
All those different variants are cool, Tom, but they're not as cool as the first ever GemMint exclusive variant for Vampirella 16, which is being crowdfunded on Indiegogo right now. We just surpassed 75 backers and $5,500, and we have 20 plus days left. So, Tom, put that link in the description for them.
The link is down below, and Comic Fam, go support your other members of the comic book community. This variant is hot. I'm digging that you got that gem right on the cover. I'm hoping there's going to be some more GemMint variants in the future. This is the first one, though, so get your hands on this one, Comic Fam.
I appreciate that, Tom, and as always, geek responsibly and stay minty fresh.
Enough said. Comic Fam, we got other videos for you to check out. There's 2 of them. 1 and 2. I think they're pretty decent. Who am I kidding? They're okay. They're standard, to be honest. They're worth it, but it could be better. Have a good week.